Hey everybody, this is Wheat in the Field Ministries, and I'm glad you joined me. Today I have a very special guest, and let me introduce her to you. She is a marriage and family therapist from Rancho Mirage, California. She is an author and licensed therapist since 1985. She's an experienced therapist offering individual, couple, and family therapy, definitely in a safe environment. You can talk to her in person, go into her office. You can do telephone, or you could even do computer.
Okay.
So without any further ado, let me introduce Carol Teitelbaum. Welcome, Carol.
Hi,
How you doing today?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, thank you. I'm glad to have you here and for you to set some time aside for us to be able to do this. You know, one of the things in America today is the fact that mental health is very, very important.
Yeah.
And you're the founder of It Happens to Boys Conference, which we just went to it in March 8th, which I found just absolutely awesome. And can you tell us um, what can we expect to see at one of these conferences? And actually, why did you start it?
Well, I started it because it was a message from God. One morning I woke up and that I was told this is what you're going to do next. And I said, "Oh, I don't have time for it." I was a very busy therapist doing a lot of things and on a lot of different organizations and the Child Abuse Council. And then the message wouldn't go away. So I said, okay, guess this is what I'm going to do next. And I started out calling Dave Pelzer, who wrote A Child Called It. He had the worst case of child abuse in California's history in 1973. He was going to be killed in August, and his mom was going to kill him. And in March, he was saved finally after she had tortured him for years. And so I called him, and then I didn't get a call back. And I thought, okay, all right, try again. And then the next year, the voice said, call again. I called again, and this time he said yes. So we were up and running and have a lot of amazing speakers over the years, and we will continue to have who, are willing to work at a reduced fee because of what we're doing. And I'm so blessed by that. So there's some wonderful speakers. I always have survivors speak at the conference. We have the DA's office is there, social workers, therapists, recovery centers. So we have a whole mix, and my goal is always to create a healing community. We
Amen to
even have,
that.
we even have men who are in recovery right now, just starting recovery in a recovery center, and they bring 10 to 20 of those men to the conference. They're brand new in recovery, and it really helps them change their life.
Yeah, I noticed that when I was sitting at one of the tables. I did, and this is one of the fantastic things about the conference is that you make connections to people.
Yeah.
You know, you not only make connections to therapists like yourself,
Yes.
but you also make other connections to people that are just coming into recovery, which is really fantastic. I mean, I connected with somebody at the conference, and they just kept asking me questions about, you know, our ministry and what's happening here and what they should
Yes.
do.
Right.
I mean, that's fantastic.
And that's rare at a conference. Usually there's a little clique of people here and there, and they don't talk to each other, but I bring everybody together. Mhm.
And this is the 15th annual It
15.
hap It Happens to Boys Conference. Why have I never heard of this before?
Yeah, I don't know. We do the best we can. We're a small nonprofit, so we
Mhm.
don't have a lot of money for advertising, but I'm on Facebook probably every day and on in LinkedIn and putting things out the best that I can. But advertising is very expensive. But the local news always supports us. I'm always on the news at least a week or so before, telling people about it. They're very courageous to do that.
So is that on your Facebook page, or do you have a YouTube page or anything like that?
I have a YouTube page too. right.
Oh, cool. We'll have all that in the description and
Mm,
let people know telephone numbers and all that where they can get a hold of you. And that's why Wheat in the Field Ministries is really dedicated to getting the word out, because I hadn't heard about the conference, and I was like, when I went, I was blown away. I went with my brother, who really got touched because he grew up in a very abusive home as well.
mhm.
Um, and it's really super important to get help. You said something at the conference that I thought was really cool, and I can't recall how you said it, but
Mm.
I loved it. And you said, there's a lot of people around here that need the help, but are afraid to reach out, or I forgot how you put that. Can you clarify that?
Well, there's a lot of people, men are afraid to talk about it. But when they come to a conference like ours, or they even hear about it on the TV or in a radio show or a podcast like this, then they're like, oh, wait, maybe that would be a safe place to go, you know. And then they see all the therapists in there and they actually like come up and talk to therapists or go to recovery centers and talk to them. And now, since they're at the table together, I what I say is, you know, then they think about getting help and they go, "Oh, Bonnie, I remember her from the conference. I had lunch with her." Or I remember, you know, Clark, he was really cool. I talked to him and maybe I could call him. Or Daniel was a speaker, maybe, you know, and now they have faces to the names and it's not just like going online and finding a name and hoping that'll work. They already know. They know. They know what the, you know, how to help them. They already know that.
Right. And that's the actual impact of this conference that
Yeah,
I saw. And
right.
my brother said, I mean, he's still talking about it, by the way. He came away with it and he said, it changed my life.
Mm,
And he says, I've never heard it
no,
spoken like that before, and I've never been able to confront it the way that I did. And I was just like, wow, that touched me as well.
absolutely. Right.
And a lot of people, they don't like to talk about it,
Yeah.
but it's a necessary thing to talk about it, because then you get it out in the open. And if you don't get it out in the open, like Jerry Moe said at the conference,
Yes.
it's not going to get fixed.
No.
And that's the thing. Jerry Moe, can you just expound on him just a little bit? I found him ultra fascinating as well. And you brought all these people together for this one purpose. And I love that.
Yeah. But Jerry Moe worked at the Betty Ford Center for, I think, 30 years, 25 or 30 years, long time. He did the children's program there. And the children's program is a 4 day. They stay, you know, they don't stay overnight, but they come for 4 days and then their parents come on the last day. And so they educate the parents too. But the kids get to play games and everything's geared around recovery and understanding that your parents are not the enemy, that the drugs and alcohol are the enemy, not the parents. And the parents have a disease, and this is why they do what they do. And it really helps them. And then they put their little hearts out in their drawings and they're sharing, you know, they draw a lot of pictures of daddy and a big bottle of beer, really bigger than daddy, and daddy can't resist it, or daddy laying on the couch and asleep all the time, and they're sitting there alone, and there's nobody to take care of them. You know, mom's off to work thinking that daddy's taking care of them, but daddy's asleep. You know,
Right.
Jerry has been now he has a segment of Sesame Street. They created a character, a little girl whose parents are addicted to alcohol. And so they have a little show about that. And he's also been on Nickelodeon. He's written several books and he goes out and speaks. He's still speaking and he's collaborating with people and, you know, still offering his help, but he retired from Betty Ford.
Does he have any books out?
Yes, several books. Mhm.
That's awesome. So we'll have him on there
Right.
on the description as well to be able to get people to his books and so that they can see where,
How to
uh,
help their children. Right,
yeah,
right.
exactly.
It's a
And
family affair.
it's a family affair.
Right.
And a lot of people don't realize that when they come out of like a traumatic, abusive home, that
Mhm.
they do have PTSD. They develop like OCD, and there's a lot of different things that happen
Right,
that they may not be aware of, that they really need to see someone like you to be able to uncover all this.
right,
And like I said in the intro, it's a safe environment, and that's what's really important,
right,
because if they're afraid to talk about it,
right,
then this will make them a little bit more willing to share.
right.
And
Absolutely.
that's what I really love about it.
Mm.
Through our uh, discussions and everything, I've seen how a lot of people really do need the help. And like you said, around in different areas. I mean, I'd like to see this whole conference nationwide.
Right.
That would be awesome.
Mhm.
I don't think that's a pipe dream. I think that's doable.
Now we're trying to figure out how to do it in Spanish too.
Oh, wow.
That I don't know how we could, because there's a Spanish community, the Latino community really needs it and they want it, but we have to figure out how to do it in Spanish and how to have either headphones or something where somebody's talking to them. So we're looking into that. Yeah,
Wow. That's awesome.
yeah, because they
And
really want it. They want it, but they don't speak English. So yeah.
wow. That's another thing too, that a lot of people that I see in society today, they don't really want it. I mean, some people don't, some people do. It's just like, what would you say to somebody that to make them more willing to want it, to be able to, and sometimes, a lot of times, they don't see it in their own life. That's one of the problems. But if they're thinking about it and thinking about therapy or thinking about getting help, what would you say to make them more willing to come forward and to be able to get that help?
But one thing that really helped, which we were trying to do again, is get our billboard back up because people would call, it was anonymous to call, and they could talk to one of the survivors, they could talk to me, and that was very helpful. But we need to get the money to put that back up. So that was, and several men came to group via the billboard. We had a lot of things going on in the schools. We had flyers that we printed up, and all the counselors were giving those out to the kids. We spoke at a lot of schools, and what happened, this one particular class at Palm Desert High School, uh, the kids would tell their friends who were coming up in the class next, the next year,
Right.
you have to go to hear these people. And then they would come with them and come back and hear again, and so they started telling other people, and that's what happens. Somebody has a good experience and they tell somebody else, and then they tell somebody else, and they tell somebody else. So once we've been speaking in like recovery centers, a lot of men will come up and go, I lied on my intake, but now I'm going to go tell them the truth. So having a survivor there telling their story and seeing that now they have a life and they're doing well is such a big impact on people that makes them think I could do that. If they could do that, I could do
Exactly.
that. Right.
And you had a couple of speakers before we went into
Mhm.
another hall, and that's exactly what they did. They were
Yeah.
telling us their testimonies and everything, and I found it really powerful,
Yes.
and my brother did too, because that was really the first time. That was the first speaker and first time that he has ever heard anything like that,
Mhm.
and he just was blown away, and he said, we've got to help these people. We got to help get the word out. We've got to be there. And because mental health is so important in our society today, especially in America,
Yeah.
where we have so much freedom.
Yeah.
And I want to be able, because I came out of domestic and sexual abuse, horrific.
Mm.
Uh, I didn't even know how bad it was in my childhood until I started getting help.
Right.
And over a decade ago, it was something happened where I was transformed. Man, it was just like I went out of a meeting and the sky was bluer, the grass was greener. I knew it changed in me. And a lot of the things that I had been dealing with, like forgiveness and
Mhm.
bitterness and anger, and all that fell off.
Right.
All that went away.
Right.
And that's what I love, where people can take that and say,
Mhm.
like what you just said, if he can do it, I can do it.
Do it too. Right. Hmm.
Because I'm just an average guy, man, and nothing special about me except, I am created by God, like everybody. And I would just love for people to get to this realization.
Right.
And so I'm always looking at uh, people. How can I get them to that point of wanting help?
Well, for me, I was on the DA's commission for child abuse. And so the DAs and the sheriffs and the law enforcement, all these different guys were there, and social workers and you know, law clerks and attorneys. It was full of all that kind of person, And so the sheriff said to me, "You don't really need to do this program because men just get over it." And I said, "No, they
Wow.
He said, "Yes, they do. They just get over it, move on. It's not a problem for men. For women, yeah, but not for men." I was like, "Oh boy, no, it's not. It's not." And I told him some examples. He goes, "Yeah, but that's them. They're just weak." So that's the idea that they have. That toxic masculinity doesn't allow them to see how vulnerable they really can be. And somebody says something that they come home and their wife goes, "I don't like that you did that," and they're, where did
Yeah,
that come from? It didn't come from your wife saying that. It came from stuff that's in here that you didn't ever talk about. And she touched the button and woo,
exactly. Because if men are anything like, you know, me and they're typical, I just suppressed everything in my
yeah.
childhood. I didn't remember anything.
And one more thing, and boy, it'll come out.
Yeah, I wanted to forget it. I suppressed my entire childhood be-
Yes.
before I got married, except for three major events that really happened. That couldn't go away because that they were such great events that you couldn't forget them. But slowly but surely, what happened is it came out in my marriage, and my wife was like,
Yes.
"Oh my goodness,"
Right.
and I'm like, "Yeah, where did that come from?" But men tend to suppress everything, and it's like a springboard,
Yeah.
like Hebrews 12:14. The bitter roots, they keep coming back. They keep getting triggered. And that's the main thing that people have to realize,
Mhm.
excuse me, is that people today are being triggered a lot. I mean, I go down the freeway and I see someone cut me off, or I see someone flip me off, or, do this, that, and the other, get angry at me. I'm like, what's going on? And so that's one of the real major things that has to happen in people's lives. They have to realize this to
Mhm.
be able to get help.
Yeah. And one man said when he finally told the story, the whole world has changed. Just
Wow.
by telling my story, the whole world has changed for me.
Yeah, one morning I woke up and this was years ago, and I said, "Did everybody take a stupid pill? What's going on?" And then I had a friend of mine say the same identical thing. He goes, "What's happened to people? This is weird."
Yeah.
And and so, um, you know, one of the other things too that you're involved in that I found just absolutely beautiful was Father's Heart Ranch.
Mhm.
Could you expound on that a little bit? I just love that.
Yeah, we haven't been there in a while, but we used to go up there at least once a month, and we went up for Christmas and holidays and brought things and brought toys and gift cards. And these are the kids that are put there because they can't go anywhere else. They've already exhausted everywhere else. They're so angry and so rageful that they actually can't even keep a door on their room because they tear it off. And they do wonderful work there. They try really hard to make a safe place for them, to take good care of them, to make sure that they go to school and to get therapy and have therapists come in. They have therapists that work there, and they're doing a wonderful thing. They're trying to bring spirituality into their life. And but the saddest thing that happened on Christmas, and we were doing like theater games because they didn't want to do therapy, so they wanted to have fun. So we did theater games, and one of them was about where they wanted to be for Christmas. And even though these parents abused them, they wanted to be with their parents.
Wow.
They said they wish they could go home, even though those parents abused them. And this one little boy, he was 4, and his father was beating him so much he wouldn't stop. And then he even said, "Daddy, could you please undo my suspenders because I have to go to the bathroom?" Even though he was beating him, he still just said it that way.
Hmm.
So we love our parents. I mean, we love them, even if they hurt us. And that's why it's so hard to tell anybody, because we don't want to hurt them. We don't want their life to change. We don't want them to get arrested. We don't want them to be taken away from the family. So kids sacrifice themselves.
Wow. Wow. That sort of takes me back
Yeah.
into my childhood as well. Um, yeah, that's pretty heavy. And that's why Wheat in the Field Ministries wants to get involved with this. And my brother, who I said got touched at your conference, he's with he started a couple of organizations, Billboard of Care and 4 Bits for Care,
Okay.
which were asking for donations,
Right.
and that'll be in the description as well. And we want to pay it forward. That's the whole thing with Billboard of Care. We're going to sell, or actually, we're selling products right now, and we're going to pay the profits forward to people like you, Carol, to things that you're involved in. And I find that just ultra important in this day and age because this is the next generation.
Right.
And not only that, but we need to address the generation that's here now,
Yeah.
it's grown up, children of alcoholics, and all the things that go along with that.
Right.
And that's very, very super important. And
Okay.
Father's Heart Ranch is something that Wheat in the Field Ministries is definitely getting involved with.
Mhm.
And I thank you very much for mentioning them because that is a huge need, especially if you live in Southern California. People need to get resource. I know the economy is bad, and people are struggling with jobs, but that's why 4 Bits of Care
Right.
was started because 4 bits equals 50 cents.
Right.
That's an old term. And
Mhm.
so all you got to do is punch a button on the app. It's going to become an app, but online, you punch a button and there goes 50 cents.
Right.
Now imagine if the whole world gave 50 cents.
Yeah. Right.
Wow. We could do a lot of good with
Oh
that,
my gosh. Yeah.
and that's what we want to do. We want to be involved with you. We want to be involved with the projects that you're involved in as well. Since I am an adult survivor of abuse, domestic abuse and
Right.
sexual abuse, I'm just, and if anybody else out there is or has been involved with that, please get involved with this. And that's why we're doing this. We want to raise awareness to the point that we can get funding and we can get resources available for these people to heal
Right.
and to be productive members of society.
Absolutely. And we do have a free group on Tuesday nights.
Oh, okay.
For,
And how can they join?
so they just have to send me an email, and I just have to talk to them, and then I'll send them the invite.
All right.
Tuesday nights at 7.
Okay. And we'll definitely make that available to everybody in the description and everything for that.
And every time we have a new man, and we always, people don't always tell their story. They don't need to keep telling it over and over again. But when there's a new person, they tell their story. So by the time we get around to the new person, every time they say, I thought I was the only one. That's
Wow.
been common for
Right.
years. I thought I was the only one. That, I mean,
Right.
intellectually they knew they weren't, but emotionally they thought they were the only ones suffering the way they were suffering, or having been through what they've been through, because nobody talked to them about it. So they didn't realize there's other people out there having the same story. And
Right.
even though the story is different, each story is different, there's a common, what we call a silver thread, goes through all of them. So they're all connected by that silver thread.
Wow. Yeah. I remember um, I was telling my story to a friend of mine, and
Hmm.
I just didn't tell my story to anybody, and just the things that I could remember. And he goes, whoa.
Yeah,
He says, how did you make it through childhood? I said, what do you mean?
right.
Because I didn't know the severity of it. And
No,
I go, what do you mean? He goes, well, I've known people who've committed suicide over this.
yeah,
And I'm sure you've come across people that have tried to commit suicide
yeah,
in this, and because they haven't gotten help for it. So the only thing they think of is, well, there's only one way out. Let me take it.
right.
And I attempted suicide twice, and that's what I thought. It was
Mhm.
total desperation.
Yes.
And then God stepped in.
Yeah,
And I saw in my life how he pursued me. And if people have a willing and humble heart to be able just to let go and just be able to let God work in their lives and open their hearts to others and saying, I'm not the only one.
right.
I can get help for
Yeah.
this. And by hearing other people's stories, they can also get help
Yes.
for their own situation. Because one of the things that I've seen um, in people is that they don't, when they hear something like information or somebody else's testimony, they go, oh, okay, that's good. But they need to apply it to themselves
Mhm.
in their life. That's what I think is super important, because then that's when you learn.
Well, I always tell people, if you're in a group and somebody's talking and you feel angry, you feel sad, you feel hurt, you feel anything in your belly, that's part of your story, because
Wow.
you wouldn't feel anything if it wasn't your story. So if you go
Right.
to a movie, and you and I could go to a movie and I could be crying and you could be laughing, because it's not part of your story. You find it funny, but it was part of my story and I find it really hard and sad. So that's how we know. And that's why group is so powerful, because as you're working on your story, it's helping heal me, because the part of my story that's your story is getting healed by you working
Yeah, that's awesome. It's like
on
I
it.
looked I looked over at my wife one time. We were watching Everybody Loves Raymond, and
Uh-huh.
she's like, ah, ha, 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 ha," and I'm like, what? Why is that so funny? I don't get it.
That's right. Right.
And that was years ago, and now I find it hilarious.
Yeah.
You
And see, if somebody knew how to do this, then they could talk about it. I noticed that I thought it was funny and you were upset. So tell me about that. And then, boy, a whole bunch could come out, and understanding each other. That's a
Right,
perfect example of how it could heal someone.
right, because communication is vital to this.
Vital, right?
It's vital to healing, because if you don't communicate, like I said in the beginning, how are you going to get well?
You can't. You can't.
Yeah, you just can't. So I encourage everybody out there to get in touch with Carol, to look at what's in the description that we're gonna have a ton of information for them and everything. Listen to this again if you really need to um, get something reiterated, don't be afraid of getting help. That's what I really want people to understand.
Mhm.
And I thank you, Carol, for being here today. I thank you for taking the time.
Thank you
And
for having me.
it's always a pleasure. I'm telling you. And I want to encourage everybody next year to come to the 16th annual It Happens to
Yeah,
Boys Conference,
right.
because your life will change. Your life will change.
Yeah,
I'm
we
telling you.
already have a new speaker committed. His name is Dan Griffin, and he specializes in working with men. And he has a new program called Fathers in Trauma.
Wow. Where's that?
Well, he's online right now, but he's gonna be our speaker at the conference next year.
Oh, wow. You got to give me information on him,
I
because
will,
we can also have that as well. That's,
yeah.
oh, wow. That's awesome.
So I called him right away and I said, and we had him at our conference a long time ago, and I haven't seen him in a while. And here he is. He popped up on my Facebook page, and I called him and I said, "We're still going." And he said, "You're still going? Oh my God, 15 years for something is a long time, right?" And he
Yeah.
and we talked. He said, "Let me think about it," and he's going to be a speaker.
Wow. That is so awesome.
So I'm really happy to have something to do with fatherhood and how to help survivors learn how to be better fathers if they've been traumatized.
Exactly. Because one of the things, I used to attend Promise Keepers,
Yes.
and their anointing was actually for men.
Hmm.
And they filled I went to the stadiums. I got supernaturally touched at their of one of their events. And they lost their anointing because they allowed women and families and everything come in. And they actually apologized, and they have a video about this and everything. But now they're back on track,
Good.
and it's just for men as well, because men are the leaders of this nation. God has set up men to be the leaders, and I hope men will hear this so that they can step up to where they need to be. And
Right.
that's awesome. That's awesome that you're bringing him on.
I
I
just want to
love
make
that.
sure you knew that. Yes. Okay. Well, thank you so much for having me.
All right. Well, thank you, Carol. God bless you, and God bless everything you put your hand to.
Thank you.
Where do you go when you feel so